If you have ever lived like this, every time life starts slipping out of shape, you turn on yourself. You tell yourself you are not hard enough, not disciplined enough, not stable enough, not the kind of person who can actually hold a life together. You have probably tried to change. You have tried waking up early. You have tried working out. You have tried reading more, scrolling less, eating better, starting over. You bought notebooks, downloaded productivity apps, wrote new plans, and for a few days, it even looked real. Then slowly, everything loosened again. One bad night, one excuse, one slip, and then sooner or later, you were back in the same place, looking at yourself, as if the real problem had always been your character. If that feeling is familiar, do not rush to call it a flaw in who you are. A lot of people are not losing because they are lazy. A lot of people are losing because they keep using the wrong tools to solve the wrong problem. When Mason was 33, he had become extremely good at attacking himself. He attacked himself for procrastinating, for staying up too late, for eating badly, for telling himself he would only scroll for 10 minutes, then looking up and seeing midnight. He always had a diagnosis ready. Not hard enough, not disciplined enough, not mature enough. He truly believed that the distance between him and people who seemed to have their lives together was a matter of force. They could push through. He could not. They had discipline. He had weakness. So every time his life got messy, he would begin another reset. A clean desk, a fresh notebook, a new schedule, a list of rules. Tomorrow I wake up at 6. I stop wasting time. I work out every day. I read every day. I fix everything. It always felt like standing at the entrance to a new life. And at the beginning, it often worked. The first day looked strong. The second was decent. The third started shaking. By the fifth, a familiar sentence appeared. I am tired today. Taking one break should be fine. And then the whole structure collapsed. Every single time, Mason turned the result into a judgment about himself. Until one spring, he went to visit an old friend. The man's name was Rowan. Years earlier, Rowan had been almost exactly the same. Always restarting, always building plans, always loading his life with systems that eventually fell apart. But over the last few years, something about him had changed. He felt stable, not performatively disciplined, not rigid, stable in the way a life feels when it is finally beginning to work. Mason came expecting to see some new method, a smarter tool, a better AI system, a more advanced strategy. But the first thing he noticed in Rowan's apartment was not software. It was the environment. The kitchen counter was clear. The fridge had no sweets in it. There was only one book on the table. The phone was not beside him. It was in a drawer near the door. A pair of running shoes sat by the entrance, already facing outward. On the wall, there was a small piece of paper that said, "Put the big stone in first." Mason looked around and laughed. What is this? Some kind of life redesign show? Rowan smiled, handed him a glass of water, and said, "No. It is just me finally admitting that I cannot beat myself with willpower." That line hit Mason harder than he expected, because he had always believed that the strongest people were the ones who could overpower themselves. But Rowan did not look defeated. He looked like someone who had finally found the right weapon. They sat down. Rowan asked him, "Do you still believe you keep failing because you are not disciplined enough?" Mason nodded. Rowan said, "I used to believe that too. Then I realized I was not losing to myself. I was losing to a badly designed system." Mason did not fully understand at first. So Rowan stood up, walked to the kitchen, and opened the fridge. It was clean, no soda, no cake, no maybe just this once food. Rowan said he used to love sweets, not because he lacked information, not because he did not understand health. He knew exactly what sugar was doing. But if ice cream was in the freezer and his mood dipped at night, he would go for it every time. Then he would eat it, blame himself, and call it weak willpower. One day I finally understood, Rowan said. The problem was not that my character was too weak. The problem was that I kept putting the drug 3 steps away from me and expecting saint-level behavior. Mason laughed, but the laugh faded almost immediately, because he knew he was doing the same thing. The phone beside him, while demanding focus from himself. The junk food in the room, while demanding restraint from himself. The social apps installed, notifications turned on, while demanding peace from himself. He had built his environment like a casino, then wondered why he kept losing. A lot of people are not losing to laziness, Rowan said. They are losing because the environment knows exactly how to pull them down. Then Rowan told him a story. There had been people who returned from destructive environments. And once the surrounding cues disappeared, most of the habit disappeared with them. Not because they became noble overnight, because the environment changed. And once the environment changed, the behavior changed. That was the first time Mason realized he had been mistaking design failure for identity failure. Every time he slipped, he turned it into a judgment about who he was. He almost never stopped to ask whether the whole setup had already been rigged against him. Then Rowan showed him his desk. There was a laptop, an open notebook, and 1 sheet of paper. On the paper was written only one thing: finish the proposal draft. No giant task list, no crowded illusion of productivity, no 10 small tasks pretending to be progress. Mason asked, "What about everything else?" Rowan said, "Most of it is sand. I used to fill my whole day with sand and call it effort. Emails, formatting, tidying, researching tools, fixing tiny things that did not matter. Each one gave me the feeling that I had not been lazy. But the real stone, the thing that could actually move my life, was heavy enough to scare me. So I kept pushing it away." Mason went quiet, because that was exactly how he lived. It was not that he did nothing. It was that he kept avoiding the one important thing by surrounding it with many smaller ones. Pseudo-efficiency, Rowan said, is tactical diligence used to cover strategic avoidance. That line stayed in Mason's body long after Rowan finished saying it, because he knew it was true. That night, when Mason got home, he did not build another bigger plan. He started removing things. He deleted the short video apps, turned off the notifications, moved junk food out of the room, put a book beside the bed, put his shoes by the door, wrote down only one important task, and placed it in the center of the desk. All of it looked small, too small, almost. But Rowan had said something else that Mason could not stop thinking about. Standardization comes before optimization. You do not become an extraordinary person first and then build a stable habit. You become the person who does a little every day. Then the strength compounds. So Mason stopped asking himself to read for an hour. He read 1 page. He stopped asking himself to exercise for 40 minutes. He did 1 push-up. He stopped asking himself to repair his entire life at once. He lowered the entry point until it was almost laughable. At first, he hated this method. It felt too small, too soft, too slow to count. But after 2 weeks, he felt something new. Not intensity, stability. Not a dramatic breakthrough, more like an old machine, finally beginning to catch. Later, Rowan taught him another principle. Make good habits easier. Make bad habits more annoying. Before that, every time Mason tried to reduce screen time, his strategy was resistance. He would try not to check the phone. It almost always failed. So he changed the friction. If he reinstalled a social app, he had to log in again from the beginning. That inconvenience started doing work for him, right at the moment when his willpower was weakest. That was when he realized many habits are not impossible to break. The friction is just set wrong. Then Rowan showed him something even harder. Bad habits usually share one pattern. Immediate pleasure, delayed cost. Good habits usually reverse it. Small discomfort now, delayed reward later. So if the only thing you tell yourself is this will matter someday, you will often lose to whatever tastes good right now. That is why Rowan told him to build immediate feedback into the system. After a run, mark it. After saving money, move it into an account with a name that means something. After reading, leave a visible sign. You have to let the brain feel that not all reward lives in the future. Otherwise, it will keep running back to the faster sugar. What changed Mason most in the end was not productivity. It was the way he understood himself. He stopped seeing himself as broken, stopped seeing himself as lazy, stopped seeing every failure as evidence of weak character. He finally saw the truth. He had built a system that made failure very easy. Then he stood in front of the result and called it personality. For years, he had called that self-awareness. It was not. It was self-punishment. Real change is not learning to dislike yourself harder. Real change is learning to think like an engineer. Where is the system failing? What input keeps pulling me down? Where is the threshold too high? Where is the friction too low? Where is there no immediate reward, so the pattern never holds? 30 days later, Mason had not become another man. He still got distracted, still procrastinated sometimes, still had days when he wanted to collapse on the couch and do nothing. But one thing had changed completely. He no longer treated every slip as proof that he was hopeless. He repaired the system instead of attacking the self. If he missed one day, he did not turn it into a character trial. He remembered one rule: never miss twice. The first miss may be life. The second miss is where a new bad pattern begins. That rule saved him again and again because it pulled him out of the old perfectionism that always said, if you broke the streak once, you ruined everything. One evening, sitting by the window with the paper on his desk, he saw something clearly for the first time. Life is not changed by a few violent bursts of motivation. It changes more like a long system update. Not a vow today and a perfect self tomorrow, but the slow willingness to become a person who can actually function over time. Years later, someone asked him what the real secret of habit was. He thought for a long time. Then he said, it is not becoming harder. It is finally stopping the habit of whipping yourself and learning instead how to redesign the whole system. This is Otherworld Radio. What changes a life is not the day your will suddenly turns to steel. It is the day you finally understand that habit is not a moral trial. It is system design. When you adjust the environment, the friction, the threshold, and the feedback, your life stops feeling like an old program that keeps reinstalling and never actually runs.